listening to GeekCast Radio on geekcastradio.com. Episode 41, Top 10 Action Films.
Hello and welcome to GeekCast Radio, episode 41. I am one of your hosts, Steve, Joe, and Mike. Joining me is Optimus Solo. Hello.
Hello.
Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hello.
And of course, the other co-founder, Steve Megatron. Hello.
Hello.
And for the next 10 episodes of GCR, we're doing something Kevin mentioned to us, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Was this a suggestion you had that long ago, I think?
It's probably about that long ago.
Probably about that long. Of course, the whole music spotlight last year kind of got in the way. But anyway, we are going to be doing episode 41 to 50, top 10 countdowns of films. This was Kevin's idea. It's kind of his baby. He is list man. See what I did there instead of plot?
Yes.
So why don't you tell the listeners what this is going to be all about?
Well, I mean, basically, we like to find things that other people around the interwebs are doing and then try to do them better. No, we have already...
Specifically IGN.
We've taken on IGN's list. This time, we're taking on people that actually do make somewhat good lists. AFI... I don't remember how many years ago, and they update it, I think, every once in a while, has put out a top 10 of 10 different genres of films. I originally watched it whatever year the original airing of that series was, and they basically had their 10 different genres, and they counted down the top 10 films in each of those genres. I can't remember how many years they wait and then they update them or whatever. But I thought it would be cool not to take their specific genres, but to take more of a geeky, nerdy... I mean, obviously we have some of the basic genres, but we've also tried to tailor it as much as we can to more geek, nerd genres that people would be interested in that are watching and listening to the rest of our shows. So it's basically our take on AFI's top 10 lists with our own 10 genres, and then the GCRN members... at least for these first couple lists, have voted on a master list of, in this case, action films. And so we've had 6 different people from GCRN that have polled their rankings of top 20 films, and we've narrowed it down to overall our top 10. Uh-huh. So in the introduction, we'll be able to talk a little bit about the honorable mentions, which are any films that got voted on that did not receive enough points to actually make the top 10, so we will talk about more than just the 10 films that we've narrowed it down to, and then hopefully everyone else can weigh in on what their favorite action films are and comment on the website and tell us what we got right and what we got wrong and all that fun stuff, and then we will proceed to hit 9 different genres as we make our way through these episodes.
Yep, so as he said, episode 41 is all about action movies, GCRN's top 10 action films. Notice we are not marketing this thing saying all time, because last time we did that, we got a lot of criticism.
Well, for certain things, you can do that. And for certain things, we've been exposed to enough. Like, I don't mind doing it with the animated series because we've all seen most of the animated series of all time. I mean, they don't go back that far. Whereas films, there's a ton of them. A lot of them go back pretty far, and not enough of us would have a good knowledge of some of the classics. Dan would probably. But honestly, we haven't all seen them enough to judge them correctly.
Yes, exactly. So this is top 10 action. Why don't you take it away with some of the honorable mentions?
And it's basically got, just to give you a specific time, we're basically looking during our lifetimes or modern era, which we consider 1970 and above for this list. Anybody want to start off with some of the ones that they found in the honorable mentions, or some stuff that they had on their list that they're seeing show up that they want to mention? I know Dan's got some.
I'm surprised FX is even on here.
You're surprised which one?
FX. The Brian Dennehy movie.
Well, it's definitely an interesting... We all have our personal choices that only got voted on by one person or something like that. But there's quite a few of these that got voted on by more than one person.
One that
Oh, right. No, I know, but I'm just surprised. Like, to me, FX and FX2, its sequel, like, I found those movies and I love those two movies, but I didn't know a lot of people even knew about them. So it's kind of like the whole thing what I was mentioning over on MWire with that movie Airborne. It's like, I know I'm not the only person that knew about the film, but I just don't see those two films as being as something as a lot of people would talk about in the action genre.
Blame Canada.
one that I'm kind of surprised didn't make it was Mad Max 2: Road Warrior. I thought that would at least make the top 10. It looks like it almost got there.
Yeah, there was. It showed up on. See, what I found, one thing that was interesting in compiling everyone's votes and whatnot, is franchise movies or movies that have had sequels or multiple installments. Sometimes kind of fall prey to the everyone has their different favorite in the series. And for example, Mad Max 2 landed on 2 of our lists, and Mad Max 1 landed on somebody else's list. So, had we all been in agreement, the people that voted for a Mad Max movie and chose the same installment, it probably would have ranked higher and maybe even made the top 10. But it's interesting to see those movies that have 2, 3, 4, 5 chapters in them sometimes split the vote. So to speak, that makes sense.
It looks like that happened with Mission Impossible too, because that looks to be all over the board with 2, 4, and I think even 1 in the honorable mentions that didn't make the cut. I think that franchise in particular, they're all different in their own way. So I think depending on your personal taste, it's hard to really pick a favorite in that series.
Right. No, I definitely agree with that. There was a few like that certain, since there was more than one movie, they kind of split and either all didn't make it or only one of them made it or something like that. Any other ones that people are seeing on the list that they're surprised at? Sherlock Holmes was the top voted one that didn't make the list. Sherlock Holmes and The Professional were the 2 closest to breaking into the top 10.
I'm surprised Speed wasn't a little higher. We're doing that in MWire for the 90s retro episodes, and I thought that would be a lot higher than it is. But I guess like that too kind of falls prey to the fact that it kind of gets lumped in with all the different type of diehard films of that type of genre. So, but
I'm surprised Shooter even got voted on.
Hey, that was me.
Oh, it was?
Asshat. That was a good movie.
It was a good movie, but I don't know. It's one of those, to me, it's one of those hidden gems that nowadays cable networks do. Oh, hey, watch Shooter for the next 3 days in a row. It's just one of those films that just, I don't know.
I was surprised at 2 of them specifically that I voted for that didn't get on the list, and one of those would be Dirty Harry. I just thought that was kind of like your classic action movie, but most people were not in agreement with me on that one. And the other one was Taken. I just thought, being more of a recent movie and being such an example of Liam Neeson's badassness, that it would have ranked a little bit higher as well.
Yeah,
I agree.
I hope to God the sequel didn't make it on the countdown if the first movie didn't, because holy crap.
The sequel was awful compared to the first one.
That's what I mean. I'm hoping that because heaven forbid we have another thing of, number 3, Transformers. Oh my God.
No, I don't think anybody's going to be too upset at the top 10, but like, I don't know, just Dirty Harry and Taken off of my list were the ones that stood out. I was hoping.
Dirty Harry was on my list as well, so I was kind of surprised. I had it in my top 10, and Taken almost made my top 20, but as I kind of rearranged as we altered like what films we made eligible, it ended up getting knocked off. Another one that surprises me after doing all the James Bond movies last winter is Casino Royale did not make the top 10. Also doesn't seem like many people voted for it, which I'm kind of surprised because I think maybe because of Skyfall, maybe people are kind of forgetting about that movie.
Yeah, that's another one where you have a franchise that has so many different films, and if someone's going to pick a Bond movie, which one are they going to pick? I know Casino Royale was on there. GoldenEye got votes. I thought there was at least one more that got Skyfall. So there's 3 different Bond films that made honorable mention. So it's like more of a disagreement on which is the best Bond film, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. That's always a hard especially when you have, how many 24 movies or 23 movies. It's hard to pick which one would
Right.
consider.
Mike, any other ones that you were surprised that maybe you voted on that didn't make the list?
I don't know. I guess it's just me seeing it in theaters for the very first time ever. I'm surprised Top Gun didn't make the list. Cause
Yeah, it got multiple votes, but
yeah, I know, and I'm not expecting a lot of Tom Cruise action movies to be in a top 10, but like Top Gun is just one of those quintessential action. Don't even think about it as a story movie. Just think about the action scenes in that film, and that's why I thought it would have made it. I don't know. What about you, Steve? Any other ones that you thought might have made it?
I'm kind of surprised by looking that Die Hard with a Vengeance didn't make it on there. Or The Bourne Identity. Just because With a Vengeance is probably the second best Die Hard film to the first one. And then you have Bourne Identity, which is what starts the whole Bourne series.
Yeah, I agree, and I think again that's kind of like what we mentioned, where people split the vote between different ones, because we had Die Hard with a Vengeance and Live Free or Die Hard both got votes, and amongst our honorable mentions, so it kind of split. And with me, like I voted for Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol, instead of like let's say Mission Impossible 2. So, if I would have voted differently on that and voted for Mission Impossible 2 instead of Ghost Protocol, maybe there's a difference there. But for me, I thought Ghost Protocol was the better of the two films. So, yeah, I think what you're saying with the Die Hards, too, is just a case of where people had disagreements on which Die Hard was better than which other Die Hard type thing. Anybody else?
I'm surprised anyone voted on Last Action Hero.
I did, jackass.
Really?
Yeah, I like that movie.
I like
Everybody has their movies that they like. I like Salt, and I thought that was a good movie, even though I knew nobody else was going to vote on that. I voted on Man on Fire, just because I love that movie, even though it gets panned by most people. Payback, I like, so everyone has their favorite action films that don't get widely accepted as like top of the class.
There was two action films that Mel Gibson did. It was Payback, and there was something else. It was
Ransom.
No, not Ransom. There was Payback
Edge
and
of Darkness.
No. It's Payback and Get Carter. That's what it is. I always liked Payback better than Get Carter. I don't know why.
I like Payback. I think that's Mel Gibson like being a badass before. That was like
before he went crazy.
Well, no, that was like what Liam Neeson didn't take in. Mel Gibson had already done in Payback.
Yeah.
But it's definitely some interesting lists. I think a couple of them that we didn't mention that got some good votes. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Rambo: First Blood Part 2, The Town, Jackal, Safe House. We mentioned Speed, Boondock Saints. So there were some interesting ones that got honorable mentions.
Yeah, Police Story as well. That's one of Jackie Chan's, whether like not his first film, but one of his more notorious movies. That's another one. Jackie Chan has so many films, it's hard for people to indicate like which one's their favorite, especially because their Japanese titles and their American titles are often different. So people kind of get confused of which one's which.
And there's also the issues of who's seen what. Certain films just haven't been seen by as wide of an audience, maybe. Like I have not seen Police Story, so
with Jackie Chan, the other thing is because of his action star status and his stuntman status, the way that he does his own stunts. Sadly, a lot of times he just, it's lieutenant or detective or whatever the hell his name is in the Rush Hour movies. People just kind of lump him, at least like today's generation, I think, lumps him into, he's going to make another Rush Hour movie. That's the sad tragedy with him, I think, nowadays. Whereas, back in like the early 90s, he was doing a lot of really great films. And even before the 90s.
I did want to mention, too, Sherlock Holmes. I know I kind of said it before, but Sherlock Holmes missed the top 10 by 1 point. And I just wanted to pull that out there because for me, it had some revolutionary visual effects and some stuff that might impact the action genre going forward. And so far in both installments, I've loved the slow motion, look ahead, plot out what's about to happen, and then play at live speed type thing.
Oh, I love that in that film.
Yeah, or even in the second one where they slowed it down when they were shooting through the forests, and you got to see like bullets going slower and then faster and stuff like that. So I mean, I think Sherlock Holmes has some merit for doing some cool things that we hadn't ever seen before, or at least not on that type of level. So I'm not surprised that it ranked high, but like I said, it missed the countdown by 1 point.
All right.
So are we ready?
We are ready.
All right. Well, let's get to number 10, which came out in 2006 in kind of a special release, but it was mainly a 2007 release. And that is the movie 300, starring Gerard Butler. Beat Sherlock Holmes by 1 point for the 10th spot. I think most people are familiar with 300, the Spartans in battle. Mm-hmm. I think that movie was pretty fantastic, again, from a visual standpoint, what they did, and just the level of almost like a war battle on a different stage. I don't know, I just think it was kind of a unique take on this type of topic. I don't know who else has seen 300 on our panel.
I've never seen it.
I like 300. It is the visuals are pretty outstanding in that film. Just Zack Snyder really emulated the comic really well. This didn't make my list, but I have no issue with it being in the top 10. It is a pure action movie. Like, that movie is just like pure testosterone at its full extent. It's if you haven't seen it, definitely try to see it in high def, because it's a gorgeous looking film. And it if you read the comic or you look at the pages of the comic, it's almost exactly the same visuals, the same style. But yeah, that's kind of surprising. I didn't think that would make the top 10, but not against.
Multiple people had it in their top 10. The highest it was ranked was Michael Wilson had it ranked number 4. So that helped it get it some points. I had it in my top 10 just because, to me, it stands out for some of its unique ways that they shot some of those scenes and some of the visual effects. To me, it kind of makes it stand out compared to your typical action film.
Yeah, it was a really great film. It was one of those ones where, at the time that it came out, it was groundbreaking for what it was doing with the action genre.
Yep, so that is our number 10 ranking action film of all time. I think it fits the whole geek perspective there. For number 9, we're going to 2007, and I'm glad that at least one of these installments made the countdown. It may have ranked higher had it not split with some of the other installments. It's a Matt Damon film, so that should give it away. It is the Bourne Ultimatum.
Very nice.
So the Bourne Ultimatum. Now we know that some of the other Bourne movies did get. Bourne Identity came close to making the list as well. So it was one of those, again, where it kind of got split between the different installments. But Bourne Ultimatum did get enough points to come in at number 9. I know, Steve, you had this on your list.
Yes.
Whereas, Mike, you had both of them on your list. You had Ultimatum and Identity on your list. Dan, you had Ultimatum pretty high. I actually went with Bourne Identity instead of Ultimatum, so it might have been even higher had I went that way, but I kind of gave more credence to the first one. But you guys can speak about Ultimatum a little bit.
Steve?
Mostly why I put it on there is because I felt that it was one of the better out of the 3, only for the fact that it kind of tied some things up, and he'd really kind of found his own in the series, so it wasn't so much of him discovering himself, but he was peeling back the layers of the Blackbriar and the Treadstone and everything else, and kind of ramming it down their throats, essentially. So it was very action packed, but it was very, very well written.
Yeah, the writing on Bourne Ultimatum was so well done. I actually got the book to follow along with it, even though I know the book has more than the movie does. But the movie, it's such a great action movie. Yes, Bourne Identity isn't even, as an equal is also a really great action film. But I preferred Ultimatum because it actually told us a story of where that character of David Webb, Jason Bourne, was going to go. Like, I felt the first movie introduced us to him and kind of had that mystery of it. Supremacy kind of, it told a story of him still kind of finding himself, and then Ultimatum, it just kind of climaxed. And then sadly they moved on to other characters.
That's all right. I don't mind where they're going with it, and the fact that they're going to bring him back eventually if they follow through with that is cool. I'm just glad that one of the Bourne movies made the list, because the Bourne movies basically almost redefined the kind of the subgenre of action that we're talking about here with the the espionage and the CIA and all that other stuff. I really think the Bourne whole series is a great series. I'm glad at least one of the installments made our top 10.
Definitely, and I think one thing you have to also talk about when you talk about Bourne Ultimatum, which is honestly probably my personal top 10 like ever, I love that movie, is Paul Greengrass's direction. He came in the second installment. I think I love Bourne Identity, but I think I appreciate what he did more. What he can do with Bourne Ultimatum is the variety of the different type of action that was in that movie. You had your typical chases, but they were done really well, but you also had a really great suspense scene when it was just in the bus terminal where there's the person attempting to assassinate the reporter, and that scene was so well staged and so well plotted, and it's one location, but like Paul Greengrass is an excellent director, and he's really able to kind of mix all this different type of direction. And I also love about that movie and the series in general is how very travelogue it is, and how they always go to these different locations, and they really go there, and they really become a character in the film. And in the final film, how they went to New York, or actually not the final film, but in Ultimatum, and how strange it was that they were actually in America, because they were always in these foreign locales. So it was kind of cool seeing Jason Bourne come to New York, and New York ended up feeling more like a foreign country than the other locations, because we become so used to him in Europe and in Asia. So, but yeah, I think that's why I appreciate Bourne Ultimatum a little bit more than the other two installments. But I think it's one of the greatest trilogies of all time.
And just like I'm glad that one of the Bourne movies made the list, I'm also glad that a certain action star will show up next in number 8. So we've had Gerard Butler and Matt Damon, but how can you have a top 10 action movie list without Schwarzenegger? So for number 8, we go to 1994, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger film that we're talking about is True Lies. True Lies, which ranked as high as number 3 on JT's list as far as action films of all time.
Curse you, Canada!
God. It was also on Dan's list. It was also on Michael Wilson's list. So Dan, since you're the only one out of the 3 of us that had it on your list, what are your thoughts about True Lies?
I think what I love about True Lies is James Cameron knows how to use Schwarzenegger. He can get great performances out of him, or great performances for Schwarzenegger, and it's a mixture of great comedy and great action, and how it relied a lot on practical effects. Like, even I watched it recently the other day, and that Harrier sequence at the end still holds up pretty well, since they're using real Harrier with mixture of CGI. But that's what I love about that movie. And you have that great relationship between Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis, and I love her character. And even Tom Arnold is good in that movie. If you can get Tom Arnold to give a good performance, you're doing something right. But
apparently so.
It was the third highest grossing movie of 1994, and Jamie Lee Curtis did get a Golden Globe for Best Actress.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of people that liked it back in 1994. A lot of people were enthralled with Arnold back in the day. So I'm just happy that Arnold's somewhere on the countdown, as silly as some of his movies can be.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say Jingle All the Way, but that was later, I think. I don't think that came
This was
up.
right after This was the year after Last Action Hero.
Yeah. True Lies.
Like a rebound for him.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of people liked it in 1994. I think, for me, if I went back and watched it now, all I can think of is that awkwardness between the two of them with the marriage, and she not knowing that he's a super spy, and just that whole awkward thing. I just did not care for Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie. Please give me the Trading Places character again. Oh.
Any other thoughts on True Lies? Because I forgot to mention, but it wasn't in 8th place alone. It was tied with another film. Because Arnold was not just an action hero in the 90s, he was also an action hero in the 80s. So we're going to go back to 1985, and Arnold gets back-to-back movies here. 1985 film that he was in would be Commando. So Commando comes in tied with True Lies.
So it'd be only fitting to say, I'll be back.
Exactly. Commando was ranked number 2 by Michael Wilson, number 4 by JT. So apparently JT and Michael Wilson are big Arnold fans because they both had True Lies as well. I can see Commando. It's kind of classic action. Kind of suspend everything else and just have straight action. I'm surprised that Arnold... I guess I shouldn't be surprised that he has 2 movies on the list. But out of 10, he's dominating the rankings here.
I'm surprised that they are the 2 movies that they are. I would have thought that they would have been different films.
Well, and one thing we should mention is, before people start berating us, and they probably will at the end of once they hear everything, but certain movies were only eligible for certain genres. So some movies that you may expect that you might put in an action genre may fit better in some of our other genres. So you kind of have to stay tuned for all 10 podcast episodes before you can rail us for not including certain films. But there was quite a few Arnold movies that got votes. We talked about Last Action Hero. Obviously, we just talked about True Lies, Commando. So, Arnold, that's what he does.
Yep.
So it's not a surprise that he's had multiple movies that have gotten votes. Dan, your thoughts on Commando?
I'm not the biggest fan of Commando. It is kind of the quintessential 80s action movie. Like, it's big, a lot of one-liners, a plot that doesn't make any sense. There's a fun aspect to it, but I just think it goes a little too far at times. And but I can understand it if you're a big fan of that type of style. If you love that type of 80s action where it's never takes itself too seriously, then I can understand voting for it. But it's never really been my favorite type of style of action. But yeah, I probably would have gone.
I find it funny that it came out the same year as Rambo: First Blood Part 2. And Rambo: First Blood Part 2 made more money, but did not make our list compared to Commando. So it didn't win the yearly battle, but it won our ranking battle, I guess. But I thought, Rambo might have got a few more votes, but I don't know. I guess I am a little bit surprised that it's Commando and True Lies, but I'm not surprised that we have Arnold movies involved. Anybody else on Arnold in general? Commando, True Lies, anything?
Despite that they weren't on my list, I am a big fan of Arnold.
Yeah, I think he definitely didn't warrant at least a spot in the top 10, so I'm not upset about it.
Yeah.
Another action star that I'm not 100% surprised to find on our list is Nicolas Cage and his 1997 movie. Anybody?
Face Off?
Oh.
Nope. Con Air.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
So 1997's film Con Air with Nicolas Cage comes in at our next spot. Let's see. That's number 6 on our list. So thoughts on Con Air, Mike?
I love that movie. That movie is so awesome. It's got so many great actors in it. Besides just Nicolas Cage, and I know it's a Nicolas Cage movie, but you got John Cusack, John Malkovich,
Ving Rhames.
Oh God, Steve Buscemi as the creepy dude.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that has a plot that's so simple you don't think it's gonna work, but it does.
It's kind of got a cult following in the action genre, so I'm not 100% surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't get like the rave reviews or anything, but a lot of action films a lot of action fans and action buffs love Con Air.
I know every time whatever network, whether it's TNT, TBS, USA, whoever airs it, I know every time it airs on TV nowadays, I usually end up watching it or falling asleep to half of it or something. It's such a good movie. The stunts in it are great. The acting in the movie is so well done. and so over the top at points, but it's over the top good. It's not like, it's not like a cheesy Mr. Freeze moment from 1997.
It did win a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Reckless Disregard for Human Life and Public Property.
Was that Nicolas Cage in general, or is that in the movie?
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I just remember when it came out at the time and everybody was all about it. It was kind of, like someone had mentioned Face Off. It was around the same time that Face Off came out. We kind of had a barrage of a couple years with all these types of action movies, and this one did kind of stand out amongst them. So I'm a little surprised it's as high as number 6, but I'm not surprised that it got votes. Anybody else thoughts on Con Air?
Can't remember if it was on my list or not, but
yeah, you had it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You had it at like 7 or 8.
Yeah, I that movie is just, it's not only funny, but I mean it's because you have all the different kind of comedy and action kind of combined, but and quirky personalities, but just like you guys mentioned before, all the different actors that are in it alone kind of make it up, and it's just one of those. It's one of the better.
It's one of the better what? What the hell?
What?
Oh, you went on mute for a minute.
No, I didn't.
Oh, we heard it was it was one of the better, but we didn't hear anything after that.
One of the better Nicolas Cage movies.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Kevin, was it on your list?
No, it did not make my list. It was on Steve's list. It was on Mike's list. It was on Michael Wilson's list. So it did get multiple votes. For me, Nicolas Cage, it's like Keanu Reeves. I have trouble voting for anything that they're in.
Keanu Reeves, I have a hard time voting anything with him in it, but because because like Mike, how Mike thinks of Ryan Reynolds of Van Wilder, I think of I Know Kung Fu.
Yeah, but I think The Matrix really erased his whole Ted image, though. Anyway, that's a conversation for another time.
All right, moving right along. So we've seen Gerard Butler, Matt Damon, a double dose of Arnold, and Nick Cage. Now we are into our top 5, and we're going martial arts style this time. There is bound to be at least one martial arts film in here, and it is 1973's Bruce Lee movie, Enter the Dragon, which was nominated for AFI's 100 Thrills, 100 Years, 100 Thrills. Also got Bruce Lee nominated for 100 Heroes and Villains from AFI's 100 List series. So it has been recognized by AFI before, and it comes in at number 5. I know, Dan, you probably have something to say about Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, I think it was on my list. It's pretty high, and when making these lists, I definitely considered how much influence a film had, and you can't deny the influence that Enter the Dragon had. It launched a huge martial arts craze in the 70s. Bruce Lee, one of the biggest action stars of all time, even in a short period. I don't think it's the best of all the martial arts films, but I think considering how important it was, it does have some great action scenes. One of the best fight scenes near its classic mirror sequence at the end. Bruce Lee at his best. It was an introduction to America for a lot of audiences, and I think he is a screen presence unlike many action stars. And I just, unfortunately, he didn't have a long career as he could have because of the tragedy that happened. But Enter the Dragon's a great action film, and if you're a person that's not really watched a lot of martial arts films, I think it's a great one to start with. It is an American production, so you don't have to worry about subtitles. The dubbing is pretty bad at times, but if you can forgive that and you can just recognize just how amazing Bruce Lee is or was, and his talent is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm not upset to see a martial arts film of some sort get on there. And when you think of martial arts films, the first name you usually think of is Bruce Lee. So yeah, I'm not surprised that he made the list. He was on your list. He was on JT's list and Michael Wilson's list. So a lot of people had some respect for Enter the Dragon. I myself actually haven't seen the movie, so I could not vote for it.
I saw it a long time ago, but I know this is sacrilege to say, but I barely remember it.
I'm just not a martial arts fan as far as when it comes to movies myself. So I can't get past that, but I do respect that it is regarded as one of the better, more impactful, like Dan said, martial arts movies of all time.
Yeah.
So for number 4 on the list, we're going to 1987. This film was nominated for AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies. It was nominated for AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills. It was nominated for 100 Heroes and Villains for the heroes. It's widely considered one of the best buddy cop films of all time. And Entertainment Weekly magazine named it number 24 on their list of the greatest action films of all time. We have it as actually number 4. Mel Gibson and Lethal Weapon.
Yes, that's right. Oh, boy.
I know there's a lot of humor in it and everything, but in its essence, I still view this as a complete action film. It's not going to have the throw it in your face action that you get like from Commando or like 300 or something like that, but this is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah, you and I spent 2 hours, 23 minutes back in MWire episode 59 talking about the entire franchise.
It happens. It was on 4 of our lists, and I believe the only reason it wasn't on 5 of our list is because you, sir, voted for Lethal Weapon 2 instead.
Yeah. It was the Hey Mo.
It was the what?
It was the Hey Mo.
Oh.
Mo.
So it was another one that could have been a little bit higher had it been unanimous as far as which was the best Lethal Weapon installment. But there was no doubting that it was going to make our list, being on so many people's lists. The only other person that didn't vote for it was Michael Wilson. He left all the Lethal Weapon movies off of his list. How dare him?
What's wrong with him?
But yeah, to me, like this, I love all the Lethal Weapon films, but for me, this is the clear winner because you just get to see Mel Gibson crazy as fuck. And
so right in his element.
Yeah, the forming of the relationship between Riggs and Murtaugh in this, and there's just so many classic lines. There's classic scenes. This is a movie in college that my roommates and I is just one of those go-to movies that whenever we were bored or something, it was like throw Lethal Weapon 1 in, and it was always fun no matter how many times you watch it. Dan, thoughts on Lethal Weapon 1?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much it's great. It's a great action. I love because the action, like you mentioned, isn't very much of the 80s, but it's kind of almost closer to like the 70s grittier action with the the cop drama aspect of it, and it also has great humor. And like I think Richard Donner really mixed those really well. They complement one another. I mean, Danny Glover and Mel Gibson, one of the best partnerships ever. So yeah, I'm really glad it's on this list and glad it's high as it is. So I think it unquestionably belongs in the top 5.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Steve, any thoughts on Lethal Weapon?
It's not only really fun, but just you have Riggs. Which one's Danny Glover? Isn't he Murtaugh, or is he?
Yeah. Danny Glover's Murtaugh.
Okay, I had it right then. You have Riggs just being nuts, just completely crazy, especially when he's got a gun in his hand. So he's kind of like a younger, crazier John McClane in a sense, but he's willing to work with people and to some extent, and just that dynamic of the two of them together, you wouldn't think it would fit, but it works really well.
I agree. It was a great partnership, and it it lasted for all the movies. It wasn't something that got stale. Those two just really worked well off of each other, and it didn't matter who else you threw in there as the third or fourth person in the cast. Those two still made it work, and are hilarious together. And just the craziness of Gibson, poised with the kind of paranoia of Glover, was just perfect.
It was, yeah.
So we're into our top 3. Now, I know some people might put this more of a gangster film, but I view this film as straight action. It was actually ranked number 2 on 2 different people's lists. It's from 1995, starring Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, and Val Kilmer, the movie Heat. And to me, it's part crime, part police, part gangster, but it's all action. And some of the shootouts that they have and some of the action sequences they have are some of the best that I've ever seen. Dan, you got thoughts on Heat?
I love Heat. I mean, I probably would have ranked it higher in the action list, but I think considering its action element, I put other films a little bit higher. But regarding like the cast, that cast is fantastic. I mean, Val Kilmer does an amazing job. The chemistry and the performances of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, like that classic diner scene, is amazing. It is so well crafted. It's Michael Mann back when he was really on fire as a director. I love that movie, and we see that it has a heavy influence of a lot of heist movies that you see, like The Town that came out recently. You can definitely see its influence on The Town.
When I saw The Town, this is the first thing that I compared it to, or the first other movie that came into my head was this is like the modern version of Heat, just because I viewed Heat so highly.
Yeah, definitely, and it's just a really great movie in general. It is a hard film to quantify because of what genre you're going to put it in, but I think it does. There's enough action in there to make it legitimately on this list. But yeah, he is.
Empire Magazine actually ranked it as the 38th greatest film in history on their list of 500 greatest movies of all time. It got 38. That's a pretty high ranking. And talking about a cast, it wasn't just, Pacino, De Niro, and Kilmer, which were the main superstars there. You had Jon Voight, Ashley Judd, Natalie Portman, Hank Azaria, Tom Sizemore, Dennis Haysbert, Danny Trejo, Jeremy Piven in an early role. So, I mean, you had a lot of superstars in this cast kind of playing off of each other. But, yeah, anytime you put Al Pacino and Robert De Niro together, usually good things happen.
Except for lately, but besides that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Righteous Kill, that movie. Do not watch.
Oh, I did not see that. Note to self, don't watch Righteous Kill. But yeah, I'm glad Heat's on there. Just like I said, some of the shootouts and everything, standoffs are just fantastic. Moving on to number 2. It came in as the top ranked movie on my list. It was the top ranked movie on Michael Wilson's list. It was the top ranked movie on Dan's list. We are going to 1981 for Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now,
very nice.
I know some people will say, again, there's a lot of debate about genres. It's a fantasy film. It's an adventure film. We decided it was action-worthy amongst our different genres, and that's where it kind of plotted in. And, again, there was multiple Indiana Jones movies that got votes. Last Crusade just missed getting in there. So is it possible if we would have been in agreement on which is the best Indiana Jones movie, this could have been even higher. But number 2 is pretty high. So Raiders of the Lost Ark. Thoughts, Mike? You didn't vote for it.
Yeah, no.
No Indiana Jones movies on your list.
Last Crusade is my favorite out of them all.
Oh, you did have Last Crusade on your list. I forgot.
Yeah, I had Last Crusade on my list, and I like Raiders, but I think because I was so young at the time, and even going back, a lot of these films that everyone says, "Oh, these are such classics." And I've gone back now at 33 years old and tried to watch them, and I just don't care. Raiders is not one that I felt that way about, but another one that I felt that way about was Scarface. I saw that on AMC about a month and a half ago, and I just don't see why everyone loves that damn movie. I just don't get it.
It was not eligible for our action list, by the way.
Well, no, but
I love all the Indiana Jones movies. I'm glad there's one on our list somewhere. I go back and forth on which one's my favorite between Last Crusade and Raiders of the Lost Ark. I usually end up siding with Raiders of the Lost Ark, but when I was younger, it was usually Last Crusade. But to me, this is just the quintessential, action adventure film. It's what other films try to be that are in that same kind of subgenre, doing the little more adventure style. But I'm very happy that it's on our list. And I'm very happy that Harrison Ford's on our list.
I'm very happy it's this high. I mean, it was obviously number 1 in my list, but I love the Indiana Jones franchise as well. And I think the great thing about that franchise is it has a great hero. And Indiana Jones is one of the most iconic movie characters of all time. And also, what's really great about him is he's a very human character. Like, he's not like superhuman. He has that fear of snakes, which is more than just a little bit of a cliche thing or just something they throw in there. I think it really does help humanize him, and the fact that he is a teacher and he's really smart, and he's not just a dude who just does things without thinking. He does do that, but he's also has some intelligence behind him as well. And plus, it just has one of the greatest scores with John Williams. It just kind of makes it that much better. It just, like you mentioned, it is a movie. When you think action adventure, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark, and think everything else comes in second. It's so much fun. It is that quintessential roller coaster ride. The stunts are amazing. What they're able to do, and Harrison Ford is just charismatic as ever.
And what makes it for me is all the different, with all the Indiana Jones movies, are the booby traps and the different things that he has to dodge and whatnot. Just to give you an idea of how it's viewed around the world and everything, in North America, it remains one of the top 20 highest grossing films ever made if you adjust for inflation. It was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. As far as AFI goes, since this is kind of what we're doing here, placed the film at number 60 in its top 100 films of the first century of cinema. In 2007, they bumped it to 66. They also named it as the 10th most thrilling film and named Indiana Jones, the character, as the second most thrilling hero. And get this, in 1999, the film was deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the U.S. Library of Congress and selected for preservation in the National Film Registry.
Wow.
And Entertainment Weekly called Indiana Jones their third favorite action hero. And said that some of the greatest action scenes ever filmed are strung together like pearls in this film. So, a lot of people like this film. And on that one movie, or the Empire's ranking of 500 greatest movies of all time, Raiders of the Lost Ark was number 2. That's 500 greatest movies of all time across all genres. Empire had it at number 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's that weird genre film that is both loved by fans, loved by critics, and loved by the Academy and other locations. It's pretty rare that happens. So I think it's just pretty much, in a lot of ways, I think you can call it like a perfect film, because I really can't think of many faults with that movie.
Not at all. So that leaves us with one film left on the list. Thought it'd be fun to go around and if anyone has a prediction on what the top film may be. You've seen our honorable mentions. You've seen 10 all the way down to 2. We've seen a lot of different films. Mike, do you got a guess for number 1?
Well, Steve already said it.
Die Hard.
But I'll say it a different way. Let's hope Skynet doesn't take over.
Die Hard.
So you get.
I don't think it's gonna be. It could be Die Hard. It could be, but I'm thinking T2.
Dan?
I would say Die Hard, because Terminator. Well, anyways, I'm guessing Die Hard.
Well, it was the only movie, the number one film on our list was the only movie voted on by, I believe, every single person. I had it number 4. Dan had it number 2. JT had it number 5. Michael Wilson had it about number 9 or so. And Steve and Mike, you both had it at number 1. And
Die Hard.
That would be the 1988 film Die Hard with Bruce Willis. Again, we saw other parts of Die Hard nominated. We saw 2 of the other chapters, but it was unanimous. And this was not even close. I mentioned Sherlock Holmes missed the countdown by a point. I mentioned that there was a tie between Commando and True Lies. Die Hard was over, in our point system, was over 44 points ahead of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it dominated the competition. It was hands down, there was nobody even close to it. So, Steve, thoughts on Die Hard?
This is quite possibly one of the greatest action movies of all time, and obviously, as our list reflects, that is so true. And this film also has other significance because it actually put Bruce Willis on the action map and set him in motion for everything that he's done since, which is much
before that he was just moonlighting.
Yeah, he was kind of just playing comedy parts and playing whatever he could get for the most part, and this is what really made people pay attention to him. And honestly, this film, I could watch this over and over and not grow bored of it.
Yeah, it's got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. The film's title and its story of a lone hero battling a multitude of single-minded opponents in an isolated setting also becomes kind of a common descriptor amongst reviewers for later action films. They always refer to other films as Die Hard on a blank. For example, Speed, a lot of people referred to as Die Hard on a bus.
Yeah.
The Rock was dubbed Die Hard on an island. So it's very well regarded. Nominated for 4 Academy Awards. Obviously, it issued in a whole franchise of Die Hard films. Listed on number 39 on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills. Entertainment Weekly named it the best action film of all time. Hans Gruber was listed as number 46 on the 100 Heroes and Villains list. John McClane was placed at number 12 on that same list, and McClane's catchphrase "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker" was voted as number 96 on the greatest movie lines by Premiere Magazine in 2007. And also, Empire named it the greatest Christmas film of all time.
Okay, now wait, hold the fucking phone. I want to go around the panel here, and we need to get a 4-person GCRN opinion. Now, the question is this a Christmas movie, or is this a movie that takes place at Christmas time? No, it can't be fucking both.
Yes, it can.
No.
It takes place during Christmas time in the movie, and it's a Christmas movie.
No.
I vote both.
You have
It's
to
a
watch
movie
it around
that
Christmas
takes
time.
place
There's
at
like
Christmas
snow,
time.
there's jingle bells, there's everything going on. You can't watch this in June. You have to watch it in December.
Sure you can. Anybody can watch fucking June.
You can say it has Merry Christmas in it. I mean, they have some carols in it. It is the Christmas movie of all time. I mean, what's been more Christmas than it has the family dysfunction of, John McClane and his wife not getting along. It's all about,
It's got the guy that wants to bang his wife. It's got...
Exactly. It is everything.
So many iconic scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't. I think what people also forget with Die Hard, rewatching it, the first 30 minutes, there's not much action, but it's a good thing because it does a lot to set up its characters and set up its story. It's really well written. It's which really makes it really well, and it's masterfully directed by McTiernan. There are a lot of great shots in that movie, especially obviously the most iconic one with Bruce Willis jumping off the building with the hose, but there's a lot of great moments, and it is that simplistic plot, but it's also what's great about that movie is that it's the anti 1980s action film, and how that there are all these superhuman men, all these like ridiculous explosions, and it kind of wasn't that. And you have all these little humanistic moments, the classic shoot the glass, where Bruce Willis is just a guy, and you see his bloody feet. It's the perfect action movie. It was number 2, but on my list, but I have no issues with it being number 1.
Yeah, just like you said, the scene of him walking across the glass or whatever, and like, I don't know, this is just Bruce Willis in his element. He is never better than he is in this movie. And it's very ironic that this franchise is still going today, literally.
Even though the movies pale by comparison after each film, for the most part.
Yeah.
Or I would even argue that, 1, 3, and I'd even give it to 4. 2 is all right, and I've heard a lot of things about 5 that don't have me very enthused, but I'm still going to see it.
But we did do, like I said, Live Free or Die Hard received votes. Die Hard with a Vengeance received votes. So there was a lot of Die Hard love amongst the network. But this was by far...
Die Hard 2, while it's not the greatest plot in the world, it still is a Die Hard feel movie where John is just put into a situation that he even says it, when he's in the elevator shaft. What kind of guy falls into the same damn situation twice? I'm paraphrasing what he said, but I like that movie because of a couple of reasons. Number 1, it gave us Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon!
Yeah. And number 2, it's a decent action movie on its own. It still has the Die Hard characteristics of the first film, but it's not as good as the third and fourth film. I can't speak about the fifth film because I have yet to see it. The fourth film I'm getting sick of because cable networks constantly play it.
Yeah, I can see some people getting sick of certain ones showing up again and again. But like for me, Lethal Weapon 1, Die Hard 1, They're just two movies that I can watch over and over and over again, and I do not get sick of them. And they were both two of the first like franchise sets that I owned on a box set on a DVD, the Lethal Weapon set and the Die Hard set. Like those were my first two purchases when I went to go start buying like complete sets of stuff.
Yeah.
Because to me those franchises just define this genre in a way. So yeah, I'm very happy that it came in as high as it did, even though I didn't have it ranked number one on my personal list. I did have it ranked very high. Anybody surprised that we didn't see some of the, when you think about action stars, you think about Arnold. I hope you do think about Bruce Willis. We had Bruce Lee on there, but there's no, like Jean-Claude Van Damme or Sylvester Stallone. Some of those iconic action stars did not find a place on our countdown. Anybody have thoughts on that? I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that you would put in that category.
So, Seagal.
Steven Seagal.
Jet Li to a certain extent, Dolph Lundgren. They're probably lesser, but I'm really surprised Stallone didn't make it. I thought First Blood, if any film was probably had an opportunity to crack the top 10, and I think it probably does deserve to be, but just how the votes went. But that's probably my biggest surprise is Stallone not being on, and maybe also if we're gonna pick a movie, probably Mad Max. I'm surprised that's not on it, either Mad Max or Mad Max 2.
Yeah. Maybe Stallone and Estelle Getty will be on the comedy list.
Yeah, we had, Stallone didn't find it, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal, like you said, Dolph Lundgren, Vin Diesel, thank God. So yeah, there was some interesting, none of the WWE stars found their way onto the list. Imagine that.
No John Cena? No,
no Rock, no Rock. John Cena.
The Rock was voted not one time.
not The Rock.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I like the list. I think it's good. Just to kind of sum up here again, number 10 we had the movie 300, then Bourne Ultimatum, True Lies, Commando, Con Air, Enter the Dragon, Lethal Weapon 1, Heat, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Die Hard. Final thoughts, Mike?
I think it's a pretty damn good list, and I can't wait to see what we do next with next episode.
I think for me, my final thoughts is there's a little bit of everything, a little bit of something for everybody. You have more of your just like shoot 'em up, straight kind of over the top action and like Commando. You got your spy stuff with Bourne Ultimatum. You got your comedy cop, buddy cop film and Lethal Weapon. A little more adventure with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Your martial arts with Enter the Dragon. More of a war style with 300. So you have a little bit of all types of action in here. So there should be something for everybody on this list. Dan, what do you think?
It's pretty solid. Obviously, when you create these lists and you're trying to cram in 30 years of action films into 10 films, you're going to have certain things that don't make it, and people have their own personal biases. But I'm pretty happy, especially with our top 5. I think our top 5 is really solid, and they're all really deserving. But like you mentioned, good mixture of different movies, good mixtures of different genres within action in different years. We have from the 70s and the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. So it's good to see it spread out throughout the time.
Yeah, and like I said, our point system, it took 33 points to get onto the list. From number 10 to number 3, the range of points is from 33 to 46. That's a very small range. When you jump to our number 2 and our number 1, you go to 60 points and 104 points. So those Raiders of the Lost Ark and Die Hard ran away from the competition. Everything else was somewhat close. Steve, any final thoughts on the action list overall?
No, I'd say it pretty much hit the nail right on the head.
I agree. I think it's a great list. Mike, why don't you do your thing?
You better be careful. Sergeant Murtaugh is mean with a nail gun.
That's true.
All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of GeekCast Radio. The next episode, we will be counting down the top 10 comedy films. That's going to be really...
Everybody's got a different sense of humor.
Good Lord, that list might be the most interesting one we do, because holy crap, yeah, you're right. Everybody's got a different sense of humor. So I am TFG1 Mike with...
I'm Optimus Solo.
Movie Revolt Dan.
And Steve Megatron Phillips.
And until next time, wait a second, I gotta do that again. Until next time, unleash the geek in you, and we will count down with you next episode.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
Ready your breakfast and eat hearty. But tonight, we dine in hell!
You're fired.
Too old for this shit.
You've just listened to GeekCast Radio on the GeekCast Radio Network. There are several ways to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show. First, visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on all of our different podcasts. Second, you can rate our show and leave us feedback in iTunes. Third, follow us on Twitter at GeekCast Radio. Fourth, become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/GeekCast Radio. Call the voicemail line 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for and your name. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.